Alright, hello everyone, my name is Disc, and in this video we have a 24 Naltharus. We are Fortified, Volcanic, and Spiteful. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the air here. I've been sick all week, so I'm sorry if you hear it in my voice a little bit. I feel a lot better, but yeah, you can still hear it a little bit, so I'm sorry about it. But for this key, let's go ahead and talk about talents before we get going. I'm pretty sure this is the build I was running. So for Discipline side, it was Aegis of Wrath, Extended Rapture. And on Priest side, you don't really need Mass Dispel, you don't need Disease Dispel. So I opt into all of these defensive points. So when I look at an Naltharus that's fortified, the trickiest, most sensitive parts are the trash pulls with the chains. I don't really think the bosses are going to be a problem in here. But all we need to do is survive these chain pulls, and something like Extended Rapture just really helps ease those moments. And it doesn't hurt on the bosses either. So I'm pretty sure this is what I'm running. I will say, now that we have Augmentation, I've been running Mindbender again, which is so fun. I think everyone knows that's my preferred build, and something like a support role of Augmentation really empowers and enables it again. So I'm excited to experiment with that more in the future. And I think as a focus for this video, in the intro, I wanted to kind of give a little focus to this combat HUD here. So I've changed mine a little bit since last week. I haven't experimented with it much yet, but I moved my PI from below to like right on my tune. And that's because I was missing them too often. It's such a powerful spell for our spec. We don't really want to ever miss it. We want to roll it on cooldown. And typically I would say you don't want anything below your character as far as your UI goes. You need that to be open and clear. But when I cast PI, it kind of goes away. So I can still see the number, but when it comes available, it comes back full opacity. I'm still testing out this system, but I think I like it a lot better than it being down below. But generally, the reason I say you want a combat HUD like this, I wanted to talk about it because I see so many people. I've been watching a lot of YouTube of other players, and so many people have their spells just standard at the bottom. And I guess I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with that, but it's not helping you. So in WoW, as a ranged player, your nameplates will generally be in this area. And when it comes to like your tune and dodging mechanics, you also have to see in this area. So our focus as a ranged player, our eyes, like our eyeballs, are always in the top portion of the screen. To have your spells at the bottom, you just have to work so much harder, like actual labor, and you might think it sounds silly, but to constantly have to move your eyes the full length of your screen is more work than this. So that's just my philosophy behind a combat HUD. Mine, I talk about all the time, this is just dominoes. I think standard action bars are better than weak auras, especially now that we have these new graphics built in. I think that's really cool. I really like those graphics. So dominoes, easy to configure. I think you should organize your spells in such a way that helps you. And again, someone might say, well, if I have my, my spells at the bottom, that's not hurting me. That's different than not helping you. So, I have Schism in the center because it's our main spell. Our modifiers are tied to Schism for a reason. I look at these three as like pull modifiers, let's say. The top row are the biggest. These are our lowest cooldown spells for the most part, and these are our atonement spells, which is the bulk of our healing. So they have priority being closest to me. They have priority by being bigger. Centrally, that's our main spell. So I have a lot of organization behind this, and it's to help me. So I think if you, and it took me an afternoon to be honest, but I think if you do it, it puts you in a lot better place. I think this is a great setup for a Disc Priest. I'm just saying. But one thing I have changed, which is I'm really liking it. I'm still practicing it. So you might notice Shadow Covenant is not on my screen at all. And that's because I always cast it with Schism. So our cooldown, let's call it, is a 2 spells. We have Schism and Shadow Covenant. But the limiting factor for like which Shadow Covenant is the longer cooldown. So what I've done is I have the icon for Schism. I just prefer it. This is a macro for cast Schism, but it says hashtag show tooltip Shadow Covenant. So those always come in sequence for me. I've taken 1 spell off the screen. I've really tried to condense. You always want to open up as much space on your UI as possible. And so what it looks like. Oh, first, before I show you that, I have a couple of videos coming out this weekend. I'm going to aim for. I'm going to try and post key runs without narration, without music over top of it or anything, just a straight up key run. I think that's it'll keep more content on my channel, and it's a lot easier from my perspective. And Raider.io now has an option where you can link your videos to the run itself, and I think that's really cool. But I'm also going to. I explored this in the past. It didn't work out. I had a couple people that were interested, but it never came to be. But I'm going to start trying to give lesson-styled videos to others. So my only ask is if you're interested, upload a video so that I can take it, and I'll turn it into content. If you want a free lesson, I will take your video and give you my tips and suggestions based on what I see. And I'm going to try and do one this weekend. We had a willing viewer submit a video, and I'm going to kind of do it in this style, but I probably won't show every pull. So it ended up being a smaller video where I just highlight, you know what's going on in my notes. Yep, so that's what to look for in the future. And really quickly, I wanted to show you my new Schism macro. So I do have Schism with a focus macro for when I run long Schism. That's really, really important. But so Shadow Covenant is the longest cooldown of the two, Schism and Shadow Covenant. So it's the limiting factor. So I have this macro as cast Schism, but hashtag show tooltip Shadow Covenant. And if you want to know, my keybind for that is shift mouse wheel forward, shift mouse wheel back. And I always cast Schism first and lock it in with Shadow Covenant. I think that's fine. If you time it well, you get a lot of value there. But I'm talking about making a keybind system which is easy and flows, and spells that are in sequence that like naturally, you need to find an easy way to do it. And yep, again, so my Schism is shift mouse wheel forward, and Shadow Covenant is shift mouse wheel backward. And watch when the cooldown activates. So our limiting factor is Shadow Covenant. And I think that's fine, and I do that for Mindbender as well. I put the Mindbender as the cooldown with the Schism icon. But I think that's all I want to talk about. I hope I'm not rambling at this point. Let's go ahead and clip over to the key. All right, so we are about to get going here. There's a quick glance at the route. The key to a successful Naltharus is pulling like a maniac. So you kind of just got to do these huge pulls, take them to the chains, and I think we all know that mechanic by now. But if you didn't know, and I've seen this more than once, those chains only work in the presence of hunters. So that's kind of like a currency in this place. Kind of got to keep an eye on them and use them wisely. I have changed their nameplate color to green. The jury is still out on that, but I kind of just wanted to see them. And again, you don't need Mass Dispel here. You don't need Disease. Bank all of those points for extra defense. And Long Rapture is bitchin' in this place. And this is another tank I play with sometimes. 3-up Yuya. We were being watched.
Five.
So when it comes to these chain pulls, a piece of a word of wisdom is delay your fade. Do not rip fade too early. And this is a really cool moment that doesn't happen too often, but I'm not going to miss it. So the play is the dragon is going to rescue him back. We're doing a Hail Mary the other direction to the right. And I am long setting up a double Ripperoonie. So I think that's really great. The best play here is just have the tank gather everything as quickly as possible, because it's kind of just, can we outlast this Zerg? So I'm running Rapture, filling in those absorb values. For a Fear for defense. Never a bad place for wall either. And we did it all but 2. Very successful. So no one drops cooldowns there. We don't really consider that pull 1. That was like pull, I guess, 0.5 technically. And the next pull, you always want to drop all of your cooldowns on pull 1. You need to aim for maximum downtime, or is it uptime? And I have I've updated all my weak auras for you guys, really trying to step it up. And I put little animated GIFs. I've updated all their code. I've updated their descriptions, so go check that out. I've uploaded my updated my Grid2 profile again this week. My KUI nameplates, all of it. So this is pull 1. There's our Lust. There's our PI. Really paying close attention to when the Mage pops Combustion. You want to be as quick as possible on it for maximum value. And look at his damage down there. That's nuts. So this pull is great for Shadow Fiend to get it rolling. And it sucks that I had my macro for Schism still set as Mind Bender, so that glow's never going to go away. But, and this is a really nice weak aura that I've also updated on my page. But notice I have all my shades as a gray color through KUI. I also have them glow if it's the one targeting you. So we have a handful of fixates in Season 2, and they all operate a little bit differently, but I made a weak aura pack for all of them that will glow the nameplate of the mob on you per a successful cast. And I just think that's most important. Like, you don't need to know that it is casting or when is going to be cast necessarily. You just need to know who's targeting you. So I put a little glow on their nameplate, and I think that really helps me see the bad ones, like that one. Don't get hit. And that was dicey, but I kind of had nowhere to go. Tendrils are really nice this week. However, I am eager to regain that talent point back. Yeah, I think that glow makes a big difference, especially for like the Claw Mangles or the Blind Rage or the Spiders and Underrot. Really nice to know which mob you're having to run from, clearly. So in between pulls, it's always nice to set yourself up with at least a 3-stack on Harsh Discipline. I try and, or for the most part, I favor a 3-stack because it doesn't expire as quickly. The timer on a proc is actually very finite. I think it's 30 seconds. But getting a 3-stack or a proc between pulls. Shielded the Mage. There's his PI. And for some reason, shields were not showing up on his unit frame until later. I'm not sure why. But that was coming from the targeted spells weak aura that put the little dotted lines around him. Really good to react to that with a shield. And here's our first mutation. I precast Schism into Shadow Covenant. And you want to time that right after the first tick of damage goes out. It's always best as a healer if you can precast a spell and regain health in a group quickly. And if you haven't noticed, middle of my screen is that red and black bar. That is the boss's energy, which this whole boss fight revolves around. So I bring it up front and center, precast my Schism into Shadow Covenant. And another spell I've really been trying to maximize more and more lately is our Radiance. So it is a short range heal essentially, it's not your full range. And a lot of times if you Radiance the wrong person, you'll miss people in your party. So you have to Radiance the right person to get full coverage. It's just, you know, the difference between maximizing and not maximizing. So what I try and do is quickly glance out into the field, find a party nameplate in the middle, and Radiance them. Yeah, the more you can have that hit everybody, the better. And I didn't make the call, but that was a Rapture on the end with a final Shadow Covenant on the backside. And a really great play of utility here is Levitate everybody. If they knew what was up, they would know that we could jump across. Help the Druid out a little bit. He didn't know. And in a time like this, we don't often have this much time between pulls. And even if it's a short amount of time, you always need to be scanning your available buffs, like your Paints Up or your Rapture, so that you know what you have available going into a pull, even if they're only split by 1 second. You have to quickly glance at your spells and kind of know what's there. The worst place to be as a caster is FAP for Paints Up and not have it and wonder like what's going on, or same for Rapture. I think we've all been there. Good utility from the dragon. And I Paints Up myself here. We just gotta get through it. I have Rapture, that's all we need. Paints Up bought me just enough time to go into this Rapture. Keeping shields on everybody. And all but one. Defensive Penance into the Rogue. Penance are always best if they're offensive, but it usually happens at least once per key where a defensive penance is the best play for quick health. And I like to give them, but it doesn't happen too often. And also, Paints Ups are often personal defensives. So you can always shield yourself, you can always Paints Up yourself. Use Desperate Prayer more and more. So paying close attention for the combustion queue, pumping as much damage while we can. And coming from the targeted cast weak aura, the mage's frame turned white. That was my indicator for that shield. And all I'm really tracking on this fight with bigwigs is this attack. This is the only thing that you need to watch a timer for. This is absolutely where your Shadow Covenant goes. And that's usually all you need. And some quick reaction times there to save the Rogue. Taking quite a bit of avoidable damage, but keeping them up. And in this phase, if you didn't know, you get more damage. So don't get too caught up in healing. Try and put a little damage into the boss. And the best thing a tank can do to help a group there is pop the first chain quickly. So I was targeted on that one. So not a problem. We did overlap spells there, but I gave myself a quick shield for the front end and Paints Up myself. And then I got a Cauterize from the Evoker, which was so sick. And we were only going to get one more of those attacks anyway, so dropping 2 cooldowns there didn't really hurt us. And now it is game over. We are in execute range. Mage did get it, but yeah, gave him another shield. His health didn't spike low at all, and fight ended. So we're moving on. The next play is we grab what's in front of us and we march to the right. Oh my god, look at chat. I said, do we go? No, it's right. So we go right, and again here, pro tip, hold your fade as long as you can. You don't want to pop it too early. Keeping fresh atonements on everybody, lightly dotting people as we go. So as soon as I get that bleed, I react with Rapture, staying by the chain. I grabbed aggro and faded, casting Rapture all through this chain phase, keeping fresh full shields on the party. We are full health, and that was 100% of the mobs. Yeah, I really like that sparkle effect on the one that's on you. Helps a lot. And I'm just gripping this Druid all over the place. There's a Hunter. And going into this next pull, again, we're scanning our buffs so that we know what we have at our disposal. We have Barrier, 2 Seps, PI gotta go. I don't know. So the darker mobs are the more threatening ones. You want to focus target those guys. Paying a close eye on that combustion. There's a hella fat PI for the mage to play with. Here's our Shadow Covenant. And when it comes to Star, in a pull like this where we're about to have a lot of deaths, you want to get those damage grabs. So I play Star early, trying to get as many hits out of it as possible. And I finally thought of the name too. If anyone remembers from like geometry class, they called them scatter plots. That's all Star is. Google it. And in this pull, this is pretty threatening. You have to stay in melee range to prevent the charges. And I'm anticipating really nasty bleeds to go out. And really nasty hits. But the bleeds are the more important one. Your fear is invaluable in this pull. And we're doing pretty good so far. Finally got into my Shadow Covenant. Trying to pick up execute ranges when I can. Targeting the most threatening mob with the Pierce attack. But with the targeted cast weak R, we do see that in group. So that could be an indicator for you to fear. That could be an indicator for you to pre-shield someone to prevent the front end damage. But we still have all of our spells. I pre-shielded myself on that one. I saw it coming. Wall and Pain Sup. And a defensive penance into myself. We just had to get through it. So something like that, a pre-shield, prevented me from spiking, which is always very useful. And on this mini boss, not played much, but we want to Rapture almost immediately because that is the only attack that's really going to hurt anybody. And arguably, I could turn this bar timer off in Bigwigs and just track the other one. And when it comes to a Rapture like that... Oh, we got both of them. A Rapture is best played proactively. Another way you can look at it is the best Rapture will be on someone who is at 100% health. So you need to use it as a proactive spell, not reactionary. And paying really close attention to the timers for attacks where you have to get ahead of them is your most empowering thing as a Disc Priest. And for that second attack, we did not have shields out, but I made sure my target was loaded with a dot. I post-cast a Radiance, followed by 2 deaths. And that is about the most healing I could do in a case like that. So also, if you didn't know this, Expiation triggers Atonement. So you always want to be using your Expiation spells on a dot to get most value. And we're pulling those a little bit separately just because we don't have that many kicks here. And it's not a bad idea, I think, to take 5 more seconds to play it a little safe. And that is an immediate Rapture. Also noticing on the enemy's nameplate, I have that countdown. That is showing me the countdown for the big AoE, which I think my Rapture was a little bit late. I think if you're late, you're better to hold it. The attacks are too far apart to affect both. But that's a really nice weak aura to see those AoEs in group. Again, you really need to be able to get ahead of attacks to play Discipline optimally. And that is a weak aura. It's not mine, but similar to Bigwigs, it's loaded with all the spells. I think that's the only spell I track in this dungeon. I think that type of weak aura is best used sparingly, similar with Bigwigs. Definitely want to put less on your screen at a time. And when it comes to a warning system or an alert system, the less it's beeping at you, the more effective it is. So I kind of try and limit things as much as possible. But yeah, tracking that spell is really important. And then, yeah, like on boss fights and stuff, you generally only want to track 1 or 2 bar timers. I use a system of audibles. But also, like, when it comes to those fucking messages that are on the screen, I disable 100% of those, and I challenge anyone who's listening to disable all of those messages. They do nothing to help you, and generally they appear right where all of your nameplates are. So your eyes can't really see what's going on, and I don't think you're reading it anyway. It's just clutter on the screen. Turn them all off. Operate on a system of audibles, limited audibles. That's my advice. So here I need to get into Rapture immediately for this first AoE. And I was late. So that's fine, I get him out anyway. But I think if you pay attention, yeah, I stopped casting. So they don't last until the next attack. Maybe they would if I kept casting them. Actually, yeah, if you're late, keep casting them if you have extended Rapture. Well, it's hard to say. So this is a really key moment where we have to finish both of these pulls with a 3 on our Harsh Discipline counter. And again, that's because once you proc, you only have 30 seconds to use it or it fades. Your Harsh Discipline 1, 2, and 3 don't really even have a timer. So I know I'm going to have to drink after we get through with this, and that's going to take some time. I'm expecting my proc to fade, but I'll still be left with a 3 stack on Harsh Discipline, and back to a proc once I cast my first spell. And that's really important because with this boss, we kind of hit the ground running. We want to open with Schism Shadow Covenant with everyone atoned with a proc. So yeah, it's really important to leave these pulls with a 3. Let's see what happens. So it's nice because we have these shades that kind of linger. But I get my 3. Spam drink. And I'm keeping a close eye on my penance proc. Boom, it's gone. But we're ready anyway. So 1 cast. Flash heal into singles. Atone the group. Immediately into Schism Shadow Covenant. Getting full expiation value while my Schism is active. And anticipating that spread out, you want to Radiance, but you want to delay it for value. One of the really nice things about Discipline on this fight is Atonement Healing doesn't operate on LOS or range. So even if they're out of range, out of LOS, everyone is covered. And here's my long Rapture round. Paying really close attention to when those icons drop. Favoring where the damage is going. And so a really cool thing that a rogue can do is if he is first targeted, he can vanish or something, and it negates the whole mechanic. But Shadow Covenant is available. It is best on Might of the Forge, so we are ready. But often you just have to run Shadow Covenant when it's up, even if it's for this attack. So it doesn't always line up beautifully, perfectly. But the rogue doing that allowed me to put my strongest spell in the most damaging place twice. So it really worked out, and now we're in execute range, so we are boozing and cruising. Toning the group. We have double deaths. And boss down. So I fade and sneak around. And I don't know how rescue works, but I thought now he could bring someone up here. So I gripped him. Should have gripped the tank. Oh. So again, we have this nice moment between combat. We have all spells, so nothing to worry about. Whatever we have coming up, all spells at the ready. And I think I try and get in a habit of always glancing at my spells, because it's happened to me too many times where I will... I always want to levitate there for a little utility. But I'll reach for a spell and it's not there, and I lose time trying to figure out what's wrong. So it's always good to know what you have available. And we have the Tempest attack on the nameplate again here. That's really helpful to time your Shadow Covenant. And definitely, I always focus Bird here. Two Dark Reprimands. And I've been trying to get a lot better at this. When I watch my own videos, I notice I don't use death enough. So I don't think I'm missing like double executes, but I think I'm not playing it regularly enough. So I've been trying to do that more. Like at the front of a pull, there's no reason not to use a death on a dot, because you will have it back available by the time someone's in execute range. You want to play it a lot. And for this pull, I actually target the Lavamancer. He does a shield thing, which you got to be ready for. So if you watch his nameplate, the guy I'm targeting, Molten Barrier. So there's his shield on his nameplate. You have to break through it, and it damages the group. It's a great place to react with a Radiance. Boom. It's all about recovering health quickly. And the best thing you can do there is a quick Radiance. I could have used Rapture, But yeah, if you can ever do it with Atonement, and that attack wasn't like too bad, do it with an Atonement, heal, save a cooldown. Yep. So this next group can be pretty deadly as well because we have 2 guys that burst us. But I am focusing Bird again, worried about his attack first. I atoned the group with regular long atonements. Here's my Shadow Fiend. I do go ahead and wall here. It's not a bad idea to use it. Yeah, the Mage. So even though boss is next, I think it's kind of baited logic to ever hold for boss. And this is a really good example of Rapture. I have the entire group pre-coded right before the Crescent Tempest attack. And then I have the entire group now also pre-coded for the Lava Shield, which is about to burst. So I would say this pull has the most potential for deaths due to that overlap. The first bird attack is not a threat, but the second bird attack is in quick succession with the other guy's shield attack. So that is a really good way to use Rapture, mainly focusing on DPS and yourself, but you can coat the group for both attacks. Okay, PI is ready in a minute. It's great. So with a group like this, we have a couple decurses. I go ahead and opt to get my weapon first, or just go for it, to go ahead and consume a decurse. So I have this little weak R that tells me what weapon I got, and this is the 12-yard AoE. It's not the best one, but it's still possible. You can use these while moving, so it's not like too bad. And the best thing you can do with these weapons is also, like I've been saying, pre-cast it. So I have to be in melee range. Yeah. And so I think I did it twice too, and looking at that again, I think I was slightly early. I fucked my precast. So I have gotten a weak aura. I wish I could show it to you in this video, but it gives me like a red, yellow, green for when it's okay to precast. And I think that's really helpful because I'm not too familiar with the cast timer of that weapon, not like I am, you know, Schism or something. And for this next one, I have the best in the book. We have the Wand. All I'm tracking with Bigwigs is Magma Shield. And let's see how my precast goes. I'm waiting. Okay, I think that was a lot better. It landed after the shield went out, not before. And the best play, if you want to like think of like what's optimal there, is if all 5 of us precast so that they landed right as the shield went out. That's optimal. So again, I have the melee range one. I think I missed my precast again. Let's see what happens. And that was a defensive Dark Reprimand to recover a little bit of health. And we're just keeping Shadow Covenant on cooldown. And let's see how I precast my next special weapon. Here comes the shield. And that one landed. Run. And you'll see there we got a little bit of a problem. And my camera angle isn't going to show us, but I don't think we had all of our weapons land quick enough. Yep. And so there we go. That was a 24 Neltharus without a single death. We did probably as good as you could for a pug. And I was happy to get this one recorded for my YouTube channel. And glancing down at the damage overall, with an augmentation, I did 44.0. I think 40-ish is a good benchmark for this build, but I'm really excited to play with Mindbender more, and also really low on the avoidables, which is where you want to be as a healer. So again, thanks everyone for tuning in, and keep an eye out for my other videos this weekend, trying a couple new formats. And until next time, Disc.